Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were racing C-Class modern cars. Race number 1 would go to Sebring, and amazingly, the first hairpin at the Sebring Club circuit, we all made it around incredibly calmly. It's very rare, such a tight, narrow hairpin. And everybody got around it without bumping into each other and falling off the road, which is really rather impressive for a versus the community. Admittedly, it did only last half a lap, as by the time we come to the next big stop, a couple of cars ended off up a little bit wide. All of the GT86s kind of crowded together and bumped into each other a little bit. But yeah, on the most part, the first lap had gone relatively well. It was an incredibly busy first lap with a lot of cars sort of too wide throughout the field. But yeah, on the most part, things went relatively well. Unfortunately, I would suffer a big lag shunt and end up with a rather damaged Fiat Punto. An unusual car choice by me, certainly, but a damn fast car at that. I had no brakes, ruined aero and ruined suspension, but that wasn't stopping me from trying to get the most out of my Fiat. Two Toyotas were having an argument. I spotted my opportunity to use the grip in the Punto, try to go around the outside of what completely surprised one of the Toyotas that was not expecting me to find some space around there, and I promptly allowed a Fiesta to get past as well. Yeah, even brokered, my Fiat still had a huge amount of grip at the front, and for the first few laps, the cars, everybody remained sort of in a long kind of line. There was gaps in between everybody, but they could all see sort of cars ahead and cars behind. We also had the world's noisiest Scion. This TC has just the most ridiculous supercharger. I mean, we had the BMW 2002 has a crazy turbo. This Scion must have one of the most ridiculous superchargers. We come down into the first corner. The BMW behind misses his braking point slightly, has a huge dive, so nearly makes it stick, so nearly gets it stopped. I thought when I saw the sort of closing speed there, the BMW was long gone. He did get it stopped, unfortunately, would then hit a curb and put the car round in a circle. Curbs at Sebring can be quite vicious. While you're not likely to roll a car on Forza 5, spin one out is certainly a possibility. As I said, with my rather damaged Fiat, I ended up spending all of my time racing GT86s. I got quite bored of these cars. By the end of this race, yeah, I had just no straight line speed, was really struggling on the brakes, trying to get the Fiat slowed down. I locked a brake a little bit, ran a bit wide. The GT86 has got much better drive. He's now trying to go all the way around the outside, and if you can keep it around the outside there, that puts you on the inside for the next corner, and the grey car's got his position back, promptly runs a bit wide. I spy an opportunity to throw my car up the inside, and now I've got the line for the next corner. Again, the Toyota's trying to do the cutback, but can't quite make it stick on that turn. But this would all be for nothing. If he can stay close through this final corner, he'll have far better straight line speed than my ruined Punto. Fortunately for me, he pushes it a little bit too hard, ends up across the grass, and the Toyota is out of range by the time we get to turn 1. At the front, and as the race progressed, the Fiesta began quite quickly catching up to the RX-8 that was leading the way. Very nearly ended up in the back of the Mazda at turn 1 there. The Fiesta, though, much quicker car in a straight line as they run down the second of the relatively long straights. The RX-8 can't really do a huge amount about the straight line speed of the Fiesta. Ford just overshoots his braking a little bit, but the Mazda's stuck on the outside, has absolutely nowhere to go, and would drop back to second place, and the Fiesta would relatively quickly just pull a little bit of a safety margin back to the Mazda. And all the meanwhile, the very noisy Scion was there, and it was relatively close. The front, in the closing couple of laps, the Fiesta would pull a gap back to second and third to get a relatively comfortable margin over the cars behind. The Scion would just run out of laps to do anything about the Mazda. As you can just about see in the background, he did close up to the back of the RX-8, but couldn't do anything about overtaking it, so Fiesta would take a victory from an RX-8 and a Scion TC, and the driver task celebrates by doing some off-roading. It was over 7th place where things were getting interesting. I'd got up to the back of another GT86 and promptly got stuck trying to get past it. There was a blue Toyota that was catching up after a spin early on, and would promptly get past me when I outbrake myself, and there was an RX-8 in here, just for good measure. The two Toyotas, of course, far quicker in a straight line. However, despite my Fiat's slight damages, I was still going quickly through these turns, was making a nuisance of myself. I managed to get alongside the blue Toyota, was just sort of compromising its run through this final corner as I tried to find a way past. Problem was I had no speed on the way out. I got a little bit boxed in and lost all of my momentum while the two Toyotas shot off and started fighting one another. RX-8 would get alongside me. The two cars ahead, the fight for 7th place would go the way of the white Toyota. Blue car got close, couldn't quite beat him to the line, while behind I would drop to 10th with the RX-8 managing to out-drag me across the line. Yeah, it was a good fun race actually, that one I have to say. Race number 2, we would go to the Road America West alternate course. Unfortunately, somebody wouldn't go off the start line, and that would cause absolute pandemonium for everybody further back. Yeah, so sometimes happens in racing games. Yeah, it did not end well as Chrysler ends up in the tyre bundle on the way out of the first sort of corner complex. The Fiesta that we are following did manage to make it through the early parts of the race and is coming up to have a look at a Scion. Manages to sweep all the way around the outside of it after the first, or the main sort of long straight, would move up a position, was then eyeing up the next car ahead. That was yet another, there were so many. I think that one's a Subaru BRZ, if I can see the badge correctly. Indeed, it looks like it. There was a lot of the BRZs and so on. This Fiesta going for the brave around the outside through the next corner, can carry the speed through there and would move himself up into 4th place. Yeah, at this stage it was a 1-2-3 for GT86s slash Subaru BRZs. Starting from the back, I managed to avoid all of the chaos on the start line and taken no damage in my car. However, I was rather slow getting off the line as we all had to sort of check up and try our best to avoid it. So I had a lot of work to be doing. Yet again, sweeping around the outside of a Subaru Impreza through one of the fastest corners on the track. There was a huge amount of grip in this Fiat, and as we came around the final long sweeping turn, again I had to be brave, make the most of the grip, and it's round the outside of a Honda Civic through the final turn. That is a really tough maneuver to pull off. That's just how good this Punto is. Up ahead of me, there was a, I think it was a Focus fighting with a BRZ. I have all sorts of issues get crossed up through the first corner. BRZ gets a little bit of a twitch on. I stick my car up the inside. There's 3 cars in near enough 3 corners. Now we come down this long straight. My Punto was very much a handling car build. I didn't have a huge amount of straight line speed, but sat in the slipstream behind the Focus, and I was doing relatively well. I get my car to the inside and stamp on the brakes. The Civic's having a look at coming with me. He's a little bit too far back. I get past the Ford. Yeah, 4 cars in 4 corners. Not bad at all, or near enough 4 cars in 4 corners for the Punto there, while the Civic and the Focus and so on continued fighting behind. As I said, it was a 1-2-3 for the GT86s. However, that was about to change as a Fiesta caught up to the back of this, and he too goes for the spectacular outside maneuver at one of the fastest corners. They do touch a little bit through there. You see both cars get a little bit of a twitch on, but they made it through safely. Yeah, it is a little bit nerve-wracking when you just get a little bit of a bump through that corner at such high speeds. Doesn't take much to upset a car, but yeah, everybody was getting through there safely at the front, and things were close between the two leaders. The GT86 was leading the Subaru. The Toyota, a quicker car in a straight line, obviously built a slight bit different, these two. Yeah, the Toyota was just getting a little bit more straight line speed. You can see you could just pull a little bit of a gap down this straight. However, the Subaru was quicker through the corners. So while, yes, the Toyota could pull the gap here, the rest of the track is relatively tight, relatively twisty, and the Toyota was under a huge amount of pressure. All that gap he made up down the straights would be lost through here. Just ran a little bit wide. Now the BRZ is right there looking, trying to find a way past. There's a little bit of a nudge. The Subaru tries to get up the inside. Again, another little bit more of a bump. The Toyota's sliding around, but the Subaru's stuck on the outside now for the next corner, and this is a nasty corner. Uphill braking, completely blind corner, and the Subaru just can't quite get his car into a position to get past. However, as you can imagine, it was only a matter of time before the Subaru would eventually find a gap. It's continued for a good number of laps, these two fighting it out as they run down towards the hairpin. Subaru has a much better run. The Toyota goes defensive. That doesn't stop the BRZ. It's around the outside at the hairpin with a wheel on the dirt. That's a very tough manoeuvre to get done as well around there. That is a hard corner to go around the outside. But if you do, you can get it on the inside for this long sweeping turn, and the Toyota just doesn't have the grip. In the end, the BRZ can keep it on the inside. Toyota just runs out of road, and the BRZ has got into the lead. And as they run through this horrible bumpy corner, turn 1 is around here. The BRZ just manages to pull a little bit of a gap back to the Toyota. Further back, this was the battle over 7th place between a Subaru Impreza and a Honda Civic as we come up towards this first corner. It's side by side through this section. Quite a nasty place to be going side by side. It's bumpy, very, very narrow. As we see, the Civic, very easy to get your car just sort of caught on the grass, and the game will just drag it off the road. However, the Civic had a lot of straight line speed here. The Impreza, there's nothing it could do about the Civic's straight line speed as they come down this next straight. But cars that are built having such straight line speed tend not to be quite so good through the corners, as the Subaru would find out. It could carry so much more speed, completely caught out by a Civic being very slow through the turns. That's yeah, a bit of a hurry-up bump through there. My race, well, I should have spent a lot of time trying to make up for lost time at the start. I would fall foul of the bump at turn 1 in the Punto, get a very big slide while I was trying to get past the BRZ. By the time it came to the final lap, I'd yet again caught up to the tail of 4th place and was looking for a way past. I didn't have a huge amount of time and was perhaps pushing just a little bit too hard with the Fiat as I ran a tiny bit wide, got the wheel on the grass, tipped the car sideways massively. I managed to save it from spinning. I got suckered onto the grass, clonked the bridge massively. Amazingly, I got away without any damage from that, but unfortunately, my chances of getting 4th place went up in flames at that moment. And at the front, it was the BRZ that was to go on to take victory. A bit of a generous gap showing on the final lap. The Toyota pushed it a little bit too hard at one corner, ran wide onto the grass. That's why you see him dropped back. But yeah, these two remain close for pretty much the entire race as the Subaru goes for a bit of a celebratory slide through the final corner. So yeah, the BRZ would take victory ahead of the GT86, while the Fiesta would end up in 3rd. Shame about the car not getting off the start line, otherwise a relatively good race. Our 3rd and final race would go to the Catalonia National Circuit. A track I very much like racing around this circuit. Turn 1 again is a little bit of a tricky one. Turn 1, if you start at the back sort of around with me, you just don't see a thing. It's just so much smoke through turn 1. I was very cautious through there. Just try to be careful. I think somebody ran a bit wide, too deep into that first corner, but I managed to make it through. Maserati got himself in trouble on the run up the hill. We're all making the most of it. I was trying to get as many positions as I could using the grip of the Fiat. I spied an opportunity to get up the inside of a Volkswagen through a very, very fast corner. That's not a place that you really want to be going too wide, as the Porsche Scirocco would find out, getting a tag from a Maserati. I would then get up the inside of a Fiat 500 and move up yet another position on this opening lap. Understeered a little bit wide, but got the move done. At the front, and it was a Citroën DS3 that was leading the way, but coming under increasing pressure from a Hyundai, and there was a BMW 1M and Mazda MX-5 all lining up for an opportunity to get past. The Citroën could sort of hold its own through the turns fine. Problem was it had no answer for the straight line speed. The Hyundai would breeze past it and would be quickly followed by the BMW as they run down towards turn 1. There are plenty of corners around Catalonia. You certainly want a decent handling car, but if you have that straight line speed, the straight makes for a fantastic overtaking opportunity. BMW is still trying to find a way past the Hyundai. Is doing the best that he can, tries to get as good a run through up the hill as he could. Just snagged a wheel on the dirt though, compromised his run, just lost that little bit of momentum, and the Hyundai would keep the lead. The Citroën running a little bit wide was coming under pressure from the MX-5. Unfortunately, a big lag bump would sort of, well, ruin a lot of things. In this race, the Hyundai would end up back in the mix of things, while the BMW would end up out of the race. It kind of slotted in between me and a Mazda RX-8 that were battling over what was now third place. As we come down this start-finish straight, I know I have no hope of out-accelerating the Hyundai. However, the Punto, very light, very good brakes. I stood a chance of having a dive at turn 1, so sure enough, I gave it a go up the inside, kind of goaded the Hyundai into outbraking itself a little bit. He ran wide, and there was a space for a Fiat to get past. I then had such fantastic drive off turn 1. It was around the outside of the Mazda RX-8, and I would get 2 positions into corners. Unfortunately, that's where it all went downhill. Admittedly, far more spectacular for the RX-8 that got catapulted off the back of my car thanks to another lag cannon to the poor Hyundai. Yeah, that would end up with the RX-8 in the sand trap and me yet again with a very broken Fiat. I would have to go to the pits, and unfortunately this race became just incredibly spread out. It then kind of ended up as the rather annoyed Alex overtaking everything with a very fast Fiat show, because nobody else was close to any car on track. Me going to the pits, fixing up my car, was now incredibly quick, and yeah, I just proceeded to overtake at pretty much every corner on the track. It's around the outside of turn 2 as I find my way past a Ford Focus. And you can kind of see that the gaps were around, just nobody was close enough to sort of make a maneuver on anybody. I was having understeer issues a little bit, pushing the car a bit too hard through the hairpin. Not quite as much as the Focus behind me, though. I think about going around the outside of a Chrysler 300C. Change my mind when I see him start understeering and simply switch back to the inside. Got that position as well through that fast corner. You're a little bit scary when you're on the outside of a Chrysler that suddenly starts understeering towards you. Again, thankfully this Fiat has got so much grip I can change direction. After a lap or so, my next target, a Maserati, that would probably do the best at fending off my Fiat for a few corners. Turn 1, like the straight line speed of the Maserati, I couldn't stand a hope to match. Turn 1, I couldn't get anything done, and he was just sort of in the right position to block my run through turn 2. Couldn't do anything about it. Again, up the hill, he defends at the top of the hill, and I can't quite get my car alongside. As you come through the fast chicane, he goes defensive, gets a wheel on the grass, and that's it for the Maserati. He can't do anything about it as he ends up off on the sand trap. My Fiat could go through. Yeah, you fended me off for a few corners. There's more than could be said for a lot of the cars. This Fiat is ridiculously fast. Is easily my new C-Class car of choice. It's such a good car to drive on these twistier circuits. My next victim, a Mini, as we come up to the tight, twisty chicanes. It's really tough to get a move done through that. I could just carry so much more speed through the turn before the chicanes. I could just fire the car up the inside of the Mini, and there was very, very little that he could do to stop that one. And my final victim before I would run out of laps to charge through the field was a fellow Fiat, the Fiat 500, coming up to the fast chicane. Get the Punto to the inside. I just have the grip. The 500 can't do anything around the outside. I would amazingly make my way up to 4th. As I said, I think I overtook a car on every single corner except for the final turn. It was quite a good fun working my way through the field. Slightly annoying, though, that I couldn't have been at the front. The MX-5 that led the way was these guys. The top 3 were so far apart you couldn't even really see the cars. I don't think you'll see second place in camera shot. You may just about see the DS3 in second. Nope, you don't see it come around the final corner. There were huge gaps at the front of the field. My Fiat would get fastest lap. I think it was about 7-8 tenths of a second quicker than the MX-5. Would have liked to have had a race with the Mazda. Yeah, the final race was quite a lonely race for everybody else except for me. And yeah, shame about the lag cannon. We could have had an interesting race with a Hyundai and BMW and so on, but yeah, there we go. I had an abysmal evening results. I think it was a 10th, a 5th, and a 4th, but had a fantastically fast car. The Fiat Punto, if you haven't tried it, certainly in C-Class, it's actually a really... You just don't think about it, but it is a fantastic car. Yeah, definitely found myself a new C-Class car. Anyway, that is it for this week's Versus the Community. The next one shall be held on August the 6th. We will be on Forza Horizon 2, racing the Rally Raid trucks on Storm Island. So you will need the Storm Island DLC, the vehicles that are illegible, the Bowler, the Mini Rally Raid, the Ford Ranger, and the Dodge Ram Runner. They're going to be the cars that, and the Rally Fighter as well. That can be raced, and they will be made up to A class. If you want to sign up and take part in that event, then you can go to our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.